Hello and welcome to the Savage Goose Show, where we talk about all things Savage Worlds from the past week. This is a weekly show where we get to talk about so many cool things. And before we really get into our main topic, which today is going to be about scarred lands, I do want to mention Travis is right here. He is going to be joining us for this episode. And you're going to see a lot about scarred lands today during today's episode. But let's go ahead and jump in. First things first, there is a new Discord server. If you weren't aware yet, there's a new Discord server for this specific Savage Goose community. There's a link down below. At some point, that link is going to stop working because that link currently gives you the founder role by default, which is a role for people who join early into this Discord server. If someone could let me know when that stops working, though, that'd be cool because I don't know when that's going to stop working. Also, Patreon down below if you want to help support what we do here and talking about Savage Worlds, that'd be greatly appreciated. As soon as I get the funds, if I get like enough recurring revenue, I'm definitely going to hire an editor. And I think if I hire an editor, we can get more videos out quicker. So, yeah, win-win. But moving on, we're going to talk about the newsletter, as we always do. And by the way, if you ever want to start getting this newsletter yourself, you can just take a look at down below. There's a link to join the newsletter over on Pinnacle's website. This is Pinnacle's newsletter, not ours, but I like to look over the news and kind of share it with you all and my thoughts on it as well. And by the way, Travis, feel free to jump in and talk about any things that you want to on any of this news.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah. So Deadlands Mysterious Maze Kickstarter, we are in week 2. They're already past $110,000. I don't know. I haven't really looked into like how good that is compared to other Kickstarters. And how well they've done before. I mean, it's a decent, good number for Kickstarter in general, but I don't know how good it is compared to like previous Savage Worlds Pinnacle Kickstarters. But there's also a lot of content in this Kickstarter. You've got the Curse of the Maze Queen, you've got the Deadlands book, you've got the adventure with Dracula himself, and then you have the Weird West Pawn. So there's quite a bit more in this particular Kickstarter, including a free STL of Dracula himself. So if you do 3D printing, either with resin or with the other one, FDM, that's what it's called. Like I use SDM printers, and you want to make one of these, you can print this off. I imagine this definitely looks like it's going to be one of those ones that's definitely more designed for a resin printer, but I've had some pretty good success with FDM printers. If you're looking for some good advice on using FDM printers to print stuff, check out Painted for Combat. His videos about printing is the stuff I've been using to really inform what I do for that stuff. Pre-order for East Texas University Fresh Blood is on BackerKit. So if you want to do pre-orders, it's your time. I did not particularly back this. I really want to play this adventure and everything, but just between all the existing adventures that you all now know that I have that I need to run, all the different settings I need to run, just not in the cards right now. Eventually though, and I have played the original ETU with my my group, so we've played some ETU. I am definitely very curious though about both the comic book and the new adventure in this book, as well as like what kind of things they updated for SWADE. But if you're interested in getting this new updated campaign, go ahead and take a look at that and check out the pre-order. There's less than 2 dozen, so that's less than 24 tickets left for the Deadlands 3rd anniversary celebration in Arizona. If you are wanting to participate in this event, you need to check it out soon, so that not only so that you can get there before people start buying up the rest of these tickets, but so that you can schedule your events, which things you're going to play in, and to make sure that you can get your plane tickets or whatever that you need in order so that you can go down. So check that out. This gets you both entry to both days of celebration. You get to play with people who made Deadlands, people who are part of it. You get catered meals. You get something like, I guess, quote, authentic Western photograph. I don't know what that means. Wear your own costumes or choose a photographer's own wardrobe and props. Okay. Sure.
It's one of the really slow exposure ones where you have to sit still.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, you got to stand there for about an hour before you can get your picture taken.
I grew up right next to Wisconsin Dells, and they had one of the attractions on the strip there was like this faux saloon where you'd go in, and one of the things you could get was like a old timey black and white, sepia tone picture taken.
Yeah.
I don't recall having to sit, but it was cool. They gave you costumes and stuff. It was neat.
I know a movie I've seen before. I'll say it's I'm not sure what I did there. There we go. One of the movies that I think talks about old timey photographs really well is A Million Ways to Die in the West. Like, I heard that there's a guy that
smiled. Yeah. Sorry, my stream cat. Yeah.
You're awesome. You're not table cat games. You can have a cat. I will say, just to, before we get further in, I feel like there's a lot of publishers who have cats. I think there's a very common delineator between like people who publish for Savage Worlds and people who have cats. I think the overlap is near 100%.
That's fair. That's fair. They're wonderful animals.
Yeah. Next Monday in the Savage universe is Travis Legge with Ace licensee Aegis Studio talking about Scarlands Player's Guide. So if there's a question that you have that does not get answered in today's stream, check out that stream next week on Monday at 8 p.m. to talk about this with, answer your questions answered that I didn't ask or, we didn't get answered here. So get the follow-up, watch this one very detailedly and then get all your questions answered next round.
100%. It's a big book, so there's a lot to cover. I'm sure.
Yeah. What is it, like 400 pages?
408 pages.
400 pages, which is a large book for a setting book in Savage Worlds.
Yeah,
so it is quite the beast. But we'll talk about why that is in a moment. Hey, and our licensee spotlight for this week from Pinnacle is Scarlands Player's Guide for Savage Worlds. Crazy.
That's awesome.
That's all the stuff is fitting together. And then we won't talk about this too much because we're going to talk about this a lot. But I mean, we'll get you these. It'll be bullet points real quick. There's more than 40 playable ancestries. That's a lot, by the way, Travis. That's a lot of ancestries.
It is. It is quite a few. Yes.
And not only that, there's 50 culture packages to tie into your ancestry. So it's not just about ancestry. It's also about how you grew up. Yep. Then obviously new arcane backgrounds, which is pretty standard. Pretty new entrances, new powers, new edges, etc. All stuff you want in a good book. And then detailed information with the world Scarn, the 5 great lands, the gods, demigods, and titans, all in one volume. So we'll talk about that a whole bunch today. But let's go ahead and return back to our everything else here. So new products. There was a couple new products that came across my emails that I want to shout out. This one probably didn't need to be shouted out because we're going to talk about it. But Scarlands. This release, to the general public, this release this past week, correct?
Yes. Yeah, it came out last Wednesday for public release. So we had the Kickstarter. It was successful last November. I believe the Kickstarter backers got their PDFs about 8-10 weeks ago, something like that.
Yeah.
And we had our final errata phase, I believe was a month. And then I took all that errata, ran that through, which, as you might imagine, for a 408 page book, there was substantial errata between the two phases. Because we did one before PDF, where there was a lot of things where it's like, some of it was, this could be explained better. Some of this was, I'm sure they'll understand it once they see a table, and they seemed to, some of it was, all those sorts of things. But yeah, we just really wanted to make sure that we had the strongest, version possible. And then as soon as I got the proofs back and made sure that it looked as good as it deserved to look, I sent out the discount links to all of the backers that had PODs coming and turned it on for public release.
Okay. So we'll get more into this in a moment, but first let's go ahead and I'll talk about the other game that came through my email, and this is Chronicles of Aerith. This was also a Kickstarter that is now out for public release, so you can go and grab this adventure, this setting book as well. It takes place in a world called Aerith. It's a fantasy setting. I don't know too much to talk about it, but it's a nice little thing that's come across that I want to make sure everyone knew about.
I think I remember they were crowdfunding about the same time we were.
That sounds about right. Yeah,
promotion with them. Yeah, sounded like a cool concept for a setting. I do not remember the specifics, but once I get done with this current run of promo, I will definitely check it out. I believe it's in my stack of things I backed. So.
Yeah, so as you can see, I got my files already. So looking forward to talking about that. All right, let's go ahead and move back over to our slideshow here. Kickstarters. Here, this is the Kickstarters are coming up. Right now we have two that are going on. Starbreaker Year Zero. This is Starbreaker, but for the Year Zero engine. We've talked to Brandon from Aegis Studios quite a few times at this point, talking about different Savage, different Starbreaker things, as well as some things that I think weren't Starbreaker, like Phase World for Rifts.
Yeah, he did the Phase World stuff.
So lots of cool things. And if you're looking to get into Year Zero, or you're not, maybe you can want to get a little bit interested, you can go and grab this setting because it's going to be feel like Savage Worlds because it's from a Savage Worlds setting itself, but it's going to be adapted for the Year Zero engine. That ends August 22nd, so that's actually this Friday, or Saturday. So if you were interested, go and grab it before the Kickstarter ends. Then also ending Friday, September 4th, is the Deadlands Mysterious Maze. Again, the most recent update to Deadlands, so go and check that out. This month's Ace Swag Legacy Spotlight. Sorry, Travis. It's not you. Not everything can be about you this week.
That's true.
This
that's
month.
valid.
But this is I believe this is no, I have one more month to talk about this, or one more week to talk about this. So this month's Ace Licensee Spotlight has been Crystal Heart, both the comic, which you can see here on the right, and the setting book for Savage Worlds on the left. Yes, this setting has been adapted both for a setting book itself, as well as its own webcomic that had then got produced into a real comic that you can buy at like places like Barnes and Noble and Amazon and physical bookstores and stuff. As it's being produced by Dark Horse Comics. Either Aaron or Aviv work for them. I can't remember which one. But let's talk about the setting for a moment. What is the Crystal Heart? In Crystal Heart, people are born with hearts that are made of stone. How does that work? Nobody quite sure knows, but no one really cares. No one really questions it. It's a fancy world. Let it fancy be fancy. And some people can get their hearts removed and replaced with these harnesses that they can carry these other hearts that are made of crystals, and those crystals have powers. They do different things though. They don't just give you powers, they also can affect who you are as a person. They can give you a hindrance that makes you either like mean or arrogant or quirky or whatever, and additionally they give you powers. One thing I like about how they do things in Crystal Heart is that the powers aren't just, hey, here's just a power and then we just slapped on this name called crystals and you can switch it out. No, the set system for crystals is actually is very deep. It has its own system that's unique. There is no PowerPoints, for example. There's no PowerPoints like that you would use to activate your crystals or anything. So they do some sort of version of the no PowerPoints rule. It's a little bit different. Crystals have rank, and the rank of the crystal changes how hard it is to use depending on what your rank is. You can do things called power stuns, which can kind of give you new ways to use your crystal. There's so many unique and interesting things about how they do crystals in here. And as you're playing through the game, you can switch out your crystal, which will remove a hindrance that the crystal came with, give you a new crystal, changing your character's demeanor. And one of the things that I really like about what they do here in that regard, considering crystals and their demeanors and such, is that they purposely make you go through character creation process before you have a crystal. You're not allowed to go, okay, what crystal am I going to get? You don't get to find out what kind of crystal you might get until after your character is created, because your character is not the crystal. Your character is before they get the crystal. Your character has a background and has things that they've learned, who they are. They have their own hindrances, so are separate from what happens with the crystal. And so they make sure that you kind of you do that. They even have you do part of making your character is running through a introductory mission that the Syndicate, not the Syndicate, just Sin, the company, that the organization you work for, wants to see how good you are, wants to see how good of an agent you are before they actually give you the power of a crystal to use. So really cool setting, really well in depth. It does a lot of thoughtful, a lot of very thoughtful things as they talk about character creation and staying in the narrative and thinking about your character from a narrative point of view. So I'm very excited to eventually play this. I think it's definitely up on my list right now as a setting I want to play. I can't remember where I put it in the end, but very, very excited to play this soon. So we'll talk about that a little bit more next week, and then we'll move on to another Ace licensee, and that is this week's Ace licensee spotlight. So moving on to our main topic. What is Starlands and how did it go savage? Now, I'm going to give a little bit of a preface here because I do know a decent amount about Scarlands because I did back to the 5th edition version of Scarlands. But it starts before 5th edition. It starts back in, is it 3rd or 3.5 that it started?
Third edition. So Scarlands has the unique historical honor of beating the 3rd edition monster manual to press. It was the first D&D monster manual for 3rd edition. They put out the Dungeon Master's Guide and the Player's Handbook, the open game license, and a couple of guys at White Wolf said, "Holy crap, we can do this." And they just sort of threw everything onto the back burner and knocked out the Creature Collection, which was the first Scarlands book, and it sort of the setting grew out of that. So yeah, it was they were the talk of the town, one might say, for a while for that.
So
here's go ahead.
Here's my 5th edition copy of the book right here. Like your book, it is also quite thick for a even for a 5e book.
It is a sizable setting. There's a lot going on in the Scarlands, and that was one of the interesting and fun challenges of bringing it across into Savage Worlds. I wanted to make sure that we brought the whole setting in a way that was playable and engaging for the players. And there's plenty of material. Like if you want to just do a game where, your hometown folk heroes fighting monsters in your backyard, you can do that in Scarlands for sure, 100%.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and actually like start with, give us the elevator pitch of Scarlands. What is like the basic thing if you were trying to get a group to play this game,
sure,
how would you explain it simply?
150 years ago, there was a Titanomachy. The gods and the Titans had a fight, and that fight happened right here on Scarn, on the planet you live on. The remnants of that fight, the side effects of that fight, are still felt today. Some of the people who fought in that war are still walking around. Some of the creatures who fought in that war are still wandering the countryside. Some of the permanent damage the landscape felt from that war has altered the world in irreparable ways.
Yeah.
And this is the world that you are adventuring in. So are you a servant of the gods who's trying to retame some of these wilds, fight off these titan spawn who've risen? Are you someone who just wants to get by, who's just trying to survive in a world that has been ripped apart by gods who had this war and then kind of went off to deal with their celestial concerns and maybe haven't been paying as close of attention as you might like to the aftermath? And so there's various, depending on which continent or which of the 5 great lands you're on, also sort of colors those interactions. The continent of Asherak, also known as the Cradle of the Gods, there's demigods all over the place, very active on Asherak, but it was also the center of a massive ecological disaster during the Divine War. So it's possibly, one might argue, hit the hardest by the effects of this war. So you've got that sort of, there's almost like a Dark Sun feel to it, but you also have these various gods who are also involved in their sort of petty squabbles. They don't have divine domains the way that the big 8 of the Pantheon do. Their main concern is their followers on Scarn, who are now living in this place that's largely heavily damaged. Right. The continent of Gelspad is where most of the actual fighting went down. So it is, just covered in ruins. There's mountains that are, titanic teeth. There's a sea that's made of literal blood because there's a titan chained bleeding at the bottom of it. That's another environment. The Dragonlands is an archipelago, a massive archipelago in the southern part of the planet that during the Divine War, it's where all the dragons lived, and they all just kind of went, the Dragon Emperor said, everybody come here and hide. We're not dealing with this God's Titan stuff. It's not our problem. And so all the dragons kind of went into hiding. And then the Dragon Emperor disappeared. And now, as of the player's guide, a Kobold Empress has risen to power who somehow has gotten the Dragon Emperor's runes, the true power of the Dragon Emperor. So now there's much upheaval in the Dragonlands because by right, she is the ruler, and she is trying to, reintegrate trade into the world and slowly take steps, out to bring the dragons back into the world at large. So there's all these different things. There's so many different ways you can approach it. And I just think it's a super fun setting that you can tell almost any story you want to tell in.
Yeah. So, Vinkle, hopefully that answers your question why they're scarred. They're scarred because Titan Wars, a war between gods and the Titans causes problems in the world. If it doesn't answer your question, please feel free to ask another one. And by the way, anyone who's in the chat, please ask any questions that you would like.
Please
anything about please ask away.
Yeah. So the scars are literal damage the world suffered from in the Divine One.
Yeah. So why? I'm going to actually ask the question in two parts. Why did you? Obviously, you like the setting, so that's probably maybe why you want to bring it to Savage Worlds. But what else? Why else did you want to bring it to Savage Worlds? And why did you feel like Savage Worlds was the right engine for this setting?
Well, I had done some work. I've been doing some stuff for Savage Worlds for some time. Excuse me. And I did a setting of my own creation called Odysseys and Overlords, which is a fantasy setting that had a lot of inspiration in like the OSR type of stuff. The original concept behind that setting was I liked like the old like Immortals D&D play, like the idea that like in like the original why is the name of the setting Mystara, like you could become a god basically, like you could adventure your way to godhood. So that was kind of the thing I built Odysseys and Overlords around. And right when I was getting ready to do the second edition of it, Wizards pulled the OGL thing where they tried to yank it.
Where everyone's aware of this situation by now, right? If you're not aware of the situation, go watch some other videos about it. Just Google it. The whole community was in an uproar.
And I said, I happen to have an Aces license, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that setting for Savage Worlds. And I took my bat and my ball and I went and played in a more friendly park. And we crowdfunded it. Crowdfunding went great. We did a follow-up crowdfunder, which also went great. People seem to have really enjoyed Odysseys and Overlords. I've loved creating for it. But I've always had a very, very, very deep love of Savage Worlds, of Scarred Lands, of Savage Worlds as well, but of Scarred Lands. Mm-hmm. And I do a lot of freelance work with Onyx Path. I'm a long-term freelancer for them. And just in conversation, Rich Thomas, the owner of Onyx Path, and I started talking about, well, what about, what would it look like? What if maybe we took Scarred Lands and gave it a shot, tried to convert it to this, And that's when we worked out that I would do a licensed agreement. I already had the Aces deal worked out, so I worked out a separate licensing deal with Onyx Path, and it's an experiment. Worst that can happen is nobody likes it. I let the license run its course, and we go no harm, no foul. We go back to the way things were at the end. I'm pleased to report that people seem to be liking it. Rich seems happy. Just as of today, we just got an extension to the IP license term. I'm announcing that here. So there's your exclusive piece of news. And it was just really a
kind of that piece of news more later.
A series of events. Really, that's ultimately was the Coast's fault. So. I don't want to go too much into blaming them, but it all worked out in the end. So thanks, Wizards. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Wizards. I mean, honestly, like you said, not to get too much into it, but yes, honestly, the OGL crisis, I'll call it crisis, definitely pushed a lot of people to start exploring other games and other systems and everything.
Honestly, probably the best thing that Wizards has done for the TTRPG hobby outside of beyond the walls of Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, 100%. I 100% agree with that. We every TTRPG community saw refugees, what they call themselves sometimes, refugees from D&D, people who are looking for new places to go, new games to make their own. We saw it in Savage Worlds. People saw it, went to Shadow Dark, a whole bunch of different games.
For sure.
All right, so let's go ahead and dive into the setting a little bit. And so you kind of explained, you gave us the premise of the setting. Titans and gods have left a destroyed world. It's been scarred by that. There's lots of different problems with it. You're either Titan spawn or big a whole entire lake that's bloodied and stuff. What kind of setting rules have you brought in to kind of help make that setting feel more like that setting mechanically?
Okay, so let me crack open the player's guide here so I can go into our setting rules. We kept it fairly straightforward. There's not a whole lot of stuff. You've got your born a hero, because one of the things is, it's a dangerous world and you're expected, if you're expecting to survive, you're going to have to be tough, right? So you have your things like you're born a hero. We have multiple languages to sort of cover the various different cultures across the world, things along those lines, and to cover the fact that people tend to be multilingual. Let me just dig this up 1 second. I appreciate your patience while I flip through my phone book here. So yeah, born a hero. We have common cause, which is adventurers on Scarn form close bonds. Player characters may freely share bennies within the adventuring party as if they possess the common bond edge. To share bennies with anybody outside the party, you need the edge. But if it's within the party, you can just share your bennies. The fanatics. I'm sorry?
Okay, and what is that trying to like? Is there like an in-game reason for that, or is it just
because it's to help illustrate that it's kind of like you against the world? The deck is stacked against you. So the people that your chosen family are important.
Okay.
We have fanatics, we have giant foes, which I believe you've seen in other settings. Heavy weapon power modifiers, those are rare and usually the purview of gods and demigods, so they're a little harder to get your hands on in Scarred Lands. Mazos's Bane is one particular interesting one that there are certain arcane skills that trigger this energy release when you cast magic. So it might be a little spark of electricity, might be a glow of light, might be heat given off. And it basically, on a successful casting, it gives off this little bit of energy. And then if you fail or if you critically fail, the energy discharge is worse. Making it very difficult to hide and cast a spell.
Yeah. So who is Meso and why does he have a Bane?
So Mazos was the sire of sorcery, the Titan responsible for arcane magic, effectively. And he was also the first Titan to fall in the Titans' War. When the gods killed him, they basically just shredded him into pieces. And so most of his energy was dispersed around the world. Some scholars believe that Mazos' Bane is actually him trying to use the discharge of arcane magic to pull himself back together. So there are some people that think that spellcasting is just a bad idea because ultimately he might pull himself together, which is another sort of meta level threat of the setting. Is to varying degrees, people have concerns that the Titans might come back. None of them are truly dead, and no prison is perfect. So like, again, the Blood Sea, the Titan Kadum lies chained at the base of the Blood Sea. But if those chains break, if someone replaces his heart, he might be able to come out and he might be able to wreak havoc again. The Titan Churn is buried under the morning marshes in a vacuum sealed sphere of stone. But that stone is constantly being chewed on by the vermin that Churn created. If they ever get through, he may be able to escape. And I'll have more on that actually a little bit later on as well.
Okay.
But then the other ones are Titan Spawn, which is just it's more of like a creature delineation. Some creatures are considered Titan Spawn, and they're therefore creatures of darkness and affected as such. And then Wild World, which is that basically it's kind of like a rubber stamp permission slip that we give as a setting rule for the GM to take any NPC or monster out of a group and assign them wildcard status. And what that's meant to represent and the difference that's meant to make is you can never walk into a cave full of goblins and be like, oh, this is just a cave full of goblins. We're fine. That one goblin might be, Kathak the Goblin, who is known for crushing adventurers' heads with his ridiculously oversized arm. Like, suddenly he's a wild card. Oh crap, we're in trouble. And that's basically what that setting rule accomplishes.
Okay.
Is giving you a permission slip to make a big bad wherever you feel is dramatically appropriate.
Okay. Venkel, I think because we're talking about the Titans and the gods and stuff, is asking, is it more Roman Greek style or medieval Dark Ages style when it comes to Titans versus the gods?
There's definitely a Greco-Roman influence to it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like in terms of both the central pantheon of the 8 victors and a lot of the interactions between the Titans and the gods draws some inspiration from those legends for sure. And then there's, as we get into the demigods, that's where it starts to broaden out into not only like global inspirations, but even just, kind of whole cloth things that aren't necessarily inspired by any one culture, but just sort of made up out of, an extrapolation of what the main, what the core mythology has built out, so on and so forth. Sure. An example of that comes to mind is the goddess Drendari is the demigoddess of shadow. She was in antiquity kidnapped by this group of beings, these group of bizarre alien creatures called Sluresians, and they sort of compelled the secrets of shadow magic from her, which is why to this day, if somebody outside of the purview of her clergy practices shadow magic, they begin, if they take the arcane background as a shadow mage, they also gain Drendari as an enemy. So you can start off as a starting player character with a demigoddess as an enemy.
Not ideal. So, okay, so you went through all the different setting rules. You've obviously the lands are scarred. We established that.
Sure.
How do you? Is there anything in the book that helps you translate? Not necessarily a setting rule specifically, but is there anything in the book that helps translate that like environment feel, or having specific environmental hazards, or feeling that magic?
Yes. So we've got, aside from like the arcane backgrounds and the new spellcasting abilities or spellcasting skills that we've added. Because, like, for example, like there's rune casting, that's its own skill. Alchemy has its own skill. Sure. And then there's a high astrology that has its own skill. There are things like this has a fully developed zodiac and calendar. So if you are a high astrologer or you have certain edges, your relation, like the literal time of the month, may affect your spell casting. There are.
Does that mean that GMs have to keep a very strict calendar?
In the event that someone's playing that, yes. So I would suggest that the player and the GM work together if you're going to be playing a high astrologer or playing somebody who has that, and work up a calendar. Fortunately, there's actually a Excel calendar you can download at DriveThruRPG at Sluresian Vault, which is the community content thing for the Dungeons and Dragons, the Scarland stuff. Somebody made a calendar for that a couple months ago. Or a couple years back. That's on Excel. You can download it, and it's just an automated calendar. It's real handy. So if you're getting into that level of the weeds, you can. There's also a calendar breakdown in the book, so it's not terribly difficult to track, particularly because Scarn uses 16-month calendar, 8-day weeks, and then 25-day months. So every month has one den day at the end of it. So it's all related to like which god has domain over which days.
Sure.
But so that's one example of it. You have gods that you can worship, you have titans that you can worship, and there are things called Ushado, which are basically the spirits. Depending on what land you're in or what your relationships are with those spirits, that can drastically affect how you're playing out, because again, the spirits of a land that's pristine will be very different than the spirits of a land that were affected by titanic corruption, just as an example. And then a lot of the differences in the various locations are going to be represented in your languages, in your culture packages, and in the edges that are available to you as well. Okay. So it's really kind of like there's very much a holistic approach that allows you to really dial in, like, I want this character to really fit this place. And then the world chapter, has a detailed breakdown of each of the 5 Great Lands. So it's very easy to get the feel of what that land is like. And then therefore, go back and say, okay, well, if I'm playing a character from Asherak, all of the settlements will have like a list of like the most common ancestries, the most common culture packages, things like that too. So it's real easy. Not that you can't play against type, of course, but it's real easy if you're like real quick, like, oh, we're going to do an Asherak game and we're going to set it, in the Three Sisters Mountains. I can look at it and I can be like, oh, the common ancestries are human and Asath and common culture packages, or artisan and desert nomad, and now I have a good easy player base, and I don't really have to think too hard about like the core concept for my character.
Yeah. So since we're heading that direction, let's go ahead and like jump into like character options. Like, what do the players get? This is called the player's guide. It's not called the GM's guide. So we're here for the players. Now, players, there's 40 ancestors in this book.
Yes.
I'm going to start with a different question, and we'll get into why and all that. Why so many? But also, I first ask, are these ancestries, in Savage Worlds core, we call those ancestries +2 because they have +2 abilities. Savage Pathfinder does +4.
They're +4.
They're +4. Okay.
Yep.
+4. And, +4 ancestries.
And they're the math is included in all the ancestries.
Oh, okay, awesome.
And part of the reason for that is because there's a sidebar included in here for if you want to have for half elves, half orcs, and characters of mixed ancestry. So basically, you can go in and say, I want a character who's, of Slytherin and Forsaken Elf ancestry. And you can build the math out yourself because it's got all the numbers are there. You can just sort it out.
You just decide which ones you want to take, which ones Okay. So then you also have cultural packages, cultural identities, backgrounds, whatever you want to call them. Core Savage Worlds doesn't really have that.
Sure.
So what does this do for the player? Like, what is this conveying?
So generally, a culture package is going to give you a skill or a bump to a core skill. It's generally going to give you an edge, and it's generally going to give you like a minor hindrance. Usually, I believe, is the way the math ultimately wound up working out for it. Okay. And these things reflect, like, again, what is normal for the profession or for the biographic detail, I guess, that the culture package is trying to represent. They can represent a occupation in some cases, they can wind up being a prerequisite or fulfilling a prerequisite for other certain edges and professional edges and things along those lines. Yeah, they kind of are a Swiss Army tool for filling in that connection between what Ancestry provides and the flesh of the character concept, if that makes sense. And again, and they're designed in such a way where there are a few that are very much designed to be straightforward, easy to pick. I'm going to be a city dweller. Okay, you don't have to think too hard. You know, here's your skill bonus. Here's an extra edge. You know, there you go.
So it's not quite a class. It's not quite a profession either. It's just like,
right. It's kind of it's a cultural stamp. It's if I had to compare it to something like in another system off the top of my head, I would say it's probably closest to like an OCC and Palladium, sort of.
Sorry.
In the sense, yeah, in the sense
Palladium's above my head.
It gives you like an idea of identity and an idea of capability, but like you know, and in some cases it is an occupation. Like you can have like, you know, minister of the Adamantine Church. You are in the church hierarchy of the god of the god Corian. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a cleric or a paladin. You can be a lay person and have that culture package.
Yeah, got it. So let's move into magic. You talk about magic briefly. Magic, you can call upon some things from the Titans, some things from the gods, some things from the cosmos, as you mentioned, astrology.
Yes.
What are the different? Let's make sure I ask the question correctly. What makes the magic unique in Scarlands versus say another setting?
Sure. A lot of it is the fine print and the precise origin. Clerics draw their magic from the gods, for example, right? There's nothing new about that. In this book, they're required to take a vow to uphold the tenets of the god. Every god and demigod in this book has a list of tenets. Okay. If you break those tenets, you lose access to your magic. And there are ways that you can atone. There's guidance on how you can atone. It's not like a chart, like do X number of things. Like it's up to the GM, and it should be based on how bad did you screw up, you know? But so that's one field of divine magic. The next field is invoking a god, which anyone can do. Okay. It's easier for a cleric of a god to do, and it's very difficult for somebody. Well, it's impossible for a cleric of a god who opposes another god to do. There are some gods that, because gods are petty, there are some gods that just will not help one another's followers. So if you try to invoke one of those, you know, they consider it breaking your vow. So not only will they not help you, they take your power for bothering to ask. But there's a rule system in there for, you know, if you spend a round invoking a god, benefits you can get for that, for the remainder of that engagement. Then you get into the druids. Druids work titanic magic at the end of the day. Even good druids get their magic from the Titan Deneth, who was the one Titan who sided with the gods during the Divine War. She's the Earth Mother. So every druid is drawing on titanic energy to use their magics. That is frowned on in a lot of areas of Scarn because of, you know, that a lot of people don't like the Titans. Deneth notwithstanding. Mm-hmm. Then you have people who are using the arcane magics, drawing on things like, you know, wizards and, you know, shadow magic, things like that, where you are using formulae of some sort. You're using established magical patterns. You're affecting arcane.
The rune mages, the alchemists.
Right. And all these things.
The astrologists.
Right. Now, some of them do not trigger Mesos's Bane because you're using effectively like a mystical prophylaxis to not directly interact with it. So alchemy doesn't trigger Mazos's Bane. Bards don't trigger Mazos's Bane. Rune casting doesn't trigger Mazos's Bane because you're not directly channeling the magic through you. You're channeling the magic through, channeling the magic through an object or through an item or through a song. That's how you get out on Mazos's Bane, but that happens. And then you have people who are using Yushada-based magic. They're drawing from the spirits, and those spirits are giving them access to magic. And those tend to be a little bit closer to druid type stuff, or direct benefits of that relationship with that specific spirit. Most of them are in a direct relationship.
So all in all, how many different arcane backgrounds is there about? Give me an estimate.
13, 14, something like
that. And that's like one. That's not one per god, because each god's gonna have their own.
Yeah, no. Gods are just clerics.
Yeah, so clerics is like 8 different kinds of clerics or more. If you got,
I mean, I think it's 42 when you consider all the demigods.
All demigods, yeah. So there's lots of different kinds of clerics you can have. All the clerics can be very different, and then you've got, you said it's about 13 arcane backgrounds. So there's still 12 more beyond that.
Right.
That's a lot of cool stuff right there.
Yeah, there's a lot of neat ways to tackle magic. Go ahead.
Oh, so is there how many new powers are there?
20.
And is there a certain focus with those, or it's just like things that you felt like were missing from core?
It's like 15 or 20. Some of them are things that I felt were of strong identity to the Scarred Lands. Aegis is one particular. It's the spell that basically, like, I'm immune to damage for this turn. That's a neat little thing that I felt was very connected. There's one called Holy Beacon's Answer. Clerics all get a feat called Holy Beacon, where you can pray to your god and shoot a glowing, basically a firework of your holy symbol up 40,000 feet into the air. And on a clear night, it can be seen for 50 miles. And anybody who knows the Holy Beacon's Answer power can look up at that and teleport to you. If they show up,
if they share the god, or if anyone, period.
As long as they're not a cleric that god doesn't
hates.
Like. Yeah. Yeah. So it's the kind of thing where, again, the gods will gate it off from abuse. But yeah, any cleric that sees that can teleport to come help you, usually. So that's a strictly Scarred Lands spell.
Okay. Gotcha.
And there's a lot more of that. And then also we adapted ritual magic from the Fantasy Companion, but we also have true rituals, which is a Scarred Lands specific invention that involve much larger workings of magic that require sometimes years of study to learn, but allow you to do things like make floating castles or raise an entire city of undead, things like that.
That does sound pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so magic is very prominent in this setting because gods are involved a decent amount, or not involved a decent amount, depending on how you look at it. Sure. Rely on you to do this work instead of them. The Titan stuff, lots of different kinds of magic from the world itself. But what about those people who just, gosh darn it, they don't want to do magic. They just want to use some weapons and hit things.
Oh yeah, plenty of things that you can learn. There's a lot of edges in here that are strictly built around combat training. Also around, various sort of permutations on, like, say, knighthood. There's one particular on the continent of Gelspad. There's a nation called Calastia. Calastia has a group of soldiers in their service they call the Dragon Knights, and you get a mock dragon, which is a little draconic creature that's about the size of a pony, that you're trained to ride and use as a mount. And that's a path you can pursue as a player character. There's various things. There's a group of soldiers from the city of Hollowfaust, which is a city run by necromancers, but they're, good necromancers. They use necromancy as public works. Okay. So, all of their sanitation is handled by animated dead people. Their city defenses is largely corpses. There's a edge you can take called unfailing, where you become kind of a bodyguard to one of or a knight in the service of this city, and you have necromantic energy channeled into you that lets you fight beyond death.
Okay.
Just in the hopes that somebody actually heals you before you keel over when the fight ends. So you have a very, very narrow window when the fight stops for them to either hit you with a bunch of healing or you die.
Oh, all right.
But it's a way to basically just stack a bunch of wounds and keep swinging. So yeah, there's a ton of different just little things like that, little tweaks like that you can take where you would take a normal adventurer's concept and twist it a little bit, give it a little extra Scarred Lands oomph.
Okay. So what about people? And this is not a thing that happens very often. And it definitely doesn't happen in a lot of fantasy settings. But if I have a player, and I say if I have a player, usually I'm that player who just wants to create a character who is not really combat oriented. Is that is that a strong possibility in this setting? Or are you going to be if you don't focus on combat even a little bit, you might be out of luck?
I mean, it really depends on what kind of a story you want to tell. If you want to, again, there with the settings that are in here, the 5 Great Lands, one of the things that's great about them is each one of them kind of focuses on a specific type of fantasy world. So as I mentioned before, Asherak is kind of like a god melodrama played out in Dark Sun. If Dark Sun had a bunch of gods that were sniping at one another, that would be Asherak, right? Termana is very much like a almost like the edges have this post-apocalyptic feel of they're dealing with the side effects of the war, and you've got a couple of fallen empires that are sort of trying to get back on their feet, and then you have this huge jungle down the middle, and so there's a lot of exploration, there's a lot of trading, there's a lot of sort of wilderness and the dangers thereof in Termana, right? Gelspad has probably the most established society, nations that have built cities and really.
Yes, I don't know why, but Gelspad is the city that I know the most about.
Yeah, it's got the most established. As much as they got their teeth kicked in during the Divine War, they've also bounced back the best, I think, after the Divine War, just in terms of setting up new cities and new cultures. And then Fenrilik is very much just a Frostland survival. You're in a tundra. Good luck.
Sure.
So you want to play in Gelspad, you can play a game that's entirely built around, somebody who's a Julka weed dealer in the city of Shelzar, and your whole game is politics. People trying to move influence around. You never once pick up a dagger. That's how gauche. You can play a game that's set on Fenrilik where it's all about how do we eat and not freeze to death today. I never have to swing a sword. I might have to throw a spear or shoot an arrow at an animal, but I never have to, swing a sword. So, I mean, it's really, I think, I really believe that within these 408 pages, you can find just about any concept.
Big book.
For a fantasy character and build a game where they're going to thrive. Okay. And that was important to me. I really want you to be able to play, because I love those kind of stories. I love nothing more than a fantasy game where we can all legitimately look at one another and go, when's the last time one of us touched a die? You know, like that's great. It's fun stuff. But also, I also like the idea of dual wielding axes while I leap down the barrel of a screaming titan. Like the idea that you can do both in the same game is really what I love the most about Scarred Lands.
Sure. So there's 3 adventures that you released alongside this, and they're a trilogy.
Yes.
You have the Gauntlet of Spragos, I can't remember which I know Gauntlets first, but then you have the Dagger and the Ring.
Yep.
There's a trilogy saying again. This was originally a D&D
5e originally.
Yeah, 5. Yeah, I say I've run Gauntlets of Spragos before for a group in 5e. We were doing a monthly game. I ran the Gauntlets of Spragos, and those adventures kind of show off that. But I actually have 2 questions I want to ask here. I want to talk about we'll talk about a little bit more of the world stuff first, and then I have another question that's more mechanical. The first question is just like, these adventures show off that there is lots of magical items that are left over from the war.
Yes.
And those are just some examples. You know, these are items that were owned by Titan himself. How else does the war kind of impact magic items or magic item creation in the Scarred Lands?
Oh, in tons of ways. There are things just kind of sort of laying around that got left behind.
And how are they wielded if they're size of Titans?
Well, funny story. The Spiragos things sort of shrink to the wearer, but there are some. Well, it goes into it a little bit more in Dagger actually, but no, there's some stuff that's just kind of lying around. There are some things where you have to go to certain quests. One of the things that's in this book, not only do I cover the 5 Great Lands, but I do cover all the planes. And one of the reasons why the Zodiac is important to the setting is because there was the thing that caused the destruction in Asherak was an event called the Calamity.
Okay.
It's a big sort of setting secret. I don't want to spoil it here, but when the Calamity happened, all of the universe stopped existing for a moment. And in that moment, the stars fell from the sky. So when the gods restarted the universe, they had to rebuild the cosmos. And so they rebuilt the Zodiac from the heroes of the Divine War, the people who served them the most, and people and creatures who served them the most and who truly helped them defeat the Titans. And one of these places is basically every not all of them wound up there, but almost every weapon that touched divine blood during the Divine War was put into this one tower in the sky, which is one of the Zodiac positions and one of the zodiacal realms. Okay. So one way you can get a hold of some of these awesome magic items is to quest to that realm and try to defeat the holder of that realm, Siklos, and convince them to give you the sort of awesomeness in killing or whatever it is that you need. But there are still plenty of things also lying around. And there are some magic items that have been granted by the gods to their followers since the Divine War. An example, there's an ancestry called the Hollow Legionnaires. They are the spirits of people of heroes who died that are bound into armor. This happens through a process involving these spires that are built in their home city of the Gleaming Valley that were built by the god Corion for that purpose. So these are these giant spires of magical metal that pull the souls of the heroic into them and fuse them into these suits of armor.
Okay.
Just as an example.
Cool. All right. So that was that one question. Mechanically, more mechanically.
Sure.
I'm someone who's been running through Savage Pathfinder, and one of the Rise of the Ruined Lords, I should say, in Savage Pathfinder. And one of the problems that I think people face and kind of still see in this conversion of the original Pathfinder version to Savage Worlds
Sure.
is this, the problem that of attrition. It's coming from attrition-based game. D&D is attrition-based. Savage Worlds is not really, it's not my opinion, attrition-based, or the attrition is very different.
Right.
And so sometimes like going through dungeons can feel like a slog.
Mhm.
How did you? What is anything you did for this, or if so, or if not, do you have any advice for people to help them with when going through a dungeon kind of feels sluggish, especially since you're going from again using that a 5e 3.5 system to Savage Worlds?
Sure. I think the big thing to leverage, and I did leverage it a bit in the Spirgos books, but I wish I would have leveraged it more in hindsight.
Okay.
I think leveraging things like quick encounters, leveraging things like, mass battles, leveraging things along those lines, uh, are sprinkle that in liberally. Anytime that you're not going to get any real narrative oomph out of a room in a dungeon, either get rid of it or throw a quick encounter at it, right?
Right.
Because that's what those are there for. Use the system, use the tools in Savage Worlds at your disposal liberally. And it's interesting you mentioned, I just want to squeeze this in real quick before I don't get a chance to say it. We mentioned it on the Onyx Path blog a few weeks ago. I have gotten approval from them for what's going to be the first Savage Worlds original adventure path plot point campaign that is in early stages of production right now. I'll probably be crowdfunding it early next year, maybe late this year, but probably early next year, called the Gluttonhold Gambit that I'm working on with Matthew Dawkins is sort of the mastermind behind it, and he'll be writing the main central path, and I'll be writing all the Savage tales that go along with it. But
are you gonna write that as a plot point campaign, the kind of models?
Yeah, absolutely. Like really taking it from like a Savage Worlds first perspective on it, because it really does have a different vibe, right?
Yeah, the adventure design between the two systems,
the ethos is wildly different. So that's why we wanted to take something and say, you know what, let's do something ground up. And I mean, I'm all for doing conversions, and I do think they're doable. I don't think it's a problem.
Right.
I just think that you need to be liberal with quick encounters. I think you need to be liberal with,
it maybe a little bit more like telling the players what they need, or telling the game master, say, hey, like, this is my experience, like looking at the Rise of the Rune Lords campaign that we remember running. Like sometimes I'm like, man, I kind of wish I had more guidance on like when I should do a quick encounter,
sure, yeah,
versus when I shouldn't do a quick encounter,
sure,
kind of thing. Or like, hey, if you're doing a quick encounter, but here's some rules for how this particular, like right now we're in the very final stages of the campaign. I'm like, well, I could do a quick encounter here, except for a battle here alerts other people if it doesn't get done quick enough. So how could I have done things differently? But yeah, so that's super exciting though, like, having an adventure done specifically for Savage Worlds. Because it will make things, it'll change the feel of it a lot.
I think it will. And I think it'll be an interesting experiment. And I think it will help us do smarter conversions in the future too, right? Because like one of the things I'm working on right now, one of the stretch goals we got in the Kickstarter is what I'm calling the Adventure Atlas right now. I hate the name. I'm taking submissions. Anybody wants to suggest a better one, I'll gladly do it. But it's kind of a world tour that involves a lot of conversions of adventures from 3.5 and 5e. And I'm trying really hard as I'm doing that to keep an eye on those things and to say like, and the ethos I'm approaching with for the moment is I'm going to break down the nitty gritty of if you want to do the grind, but I'm also going to say, if you want to do a quick encounter, here's how you do it. If you want to use a mass battle instead, here's how you do it. Whatever levers I can think of to pull, so that way the game master has their options in front of them. They can go several ways about it. And that may not prove to be the smartest thing. I may find in editing that there's a smarter way to tackle it, but that's kind of my thinking on it right now.
Sure.
And it's really going to be just expanding on what's in this core book in terms of like terrains. It's going to be about like, what are mountains like? What are some mountain survival? And a lot of it's going to be, what are the dangers, the inherent dangers of the place? What kind of things can you get from there, such as poisons, weapons, things along those lines? What kind of creatures are there? and then a sample adventure in that area. And then there's a couple of sort of established locations from earlier editions, like Warren's the Ratman and the Secrets of the Asathi. We're going to be adapting some of those under that book as well. And it'll be fun and interesting, because one of the things I would like to do for this is sort of show how each of these adventures could be played if you move them to one of the other 5 Great Lands. So how does this adventure play differently if you move it to the Dragonlands? How does it play differently if you move it to Fenrilik? What do you have to change? Maybe you have to change the creatures in the adventure, right? Maybe it's not the Asathi you're facing. Maybe in this case, it's going to be, a group of Slytherin who emigrated to Fenrilik after the Divine War or something like that, right? So it's exciting. I'm really excited to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right. So I think we're gonna start landing the plane here a little bit.
Sure.
We're gonna talk about. I'm gonna answer a few questions here, and I'm gonna have some questions to go along with this. But Venkel asks,
Sure.
what books are needed to run Scarland's game for a GM versus a player?
It was very, very, very important to me that the only thing you need is going to be the Savage Worlds Adventure Edition and the Scarlands Player's Guide. That's all you need. That is it. I recommend grabbing the monster or the creature collection one, just because it's full of Titan spawn, and Scarlands has awesome monsters. And I wish I could take credit for that. I can't. They were awesome when I got here, but you should definitely pick up the creature collection because it's a lot of fun. But if you just want like bare minimum what you need, Scarlands Player's Guide and the Savage Worlds book. If you really want to just dip your toes in and try it, just grab Gauntlet of Spiragos. It's got ready-made characters in it, and you can run the adventure there. So,
and then as far as GM versus player, basically the same thing. I mean, obviously players can just grab the player's book of the core rules instead of the full core rules. GM might want the GM should probably have the big core rules.
yeah.
I at one point had purchased like 5 of them, the core rules of the players books, but I have given them all away at this point. So, so I no longer have one. But I have one coming from the Dark Ages Kickstarter. So for that.
Nice.
But yeah, so yeah. You did mention there's some things that are from the Fantasy Companion. Or the things that you've taken from the Fantasy Companion, because there is a new rule now that you can grab stuff from the Fantasy Companion.
Yep.
And with permission from Pinnacle to incorporate.
And they were super cool about it. Yeah, they that was the last thing I talked to Jody about, as a matter of fact. So yeah, it was really cool of them to let us do it. And I'm really happy because that lets us keep that parody,
it keeps the footprint,
right?
Yeah.
It keeps things the same, right? Because rewriting a spell just for the sake of rewriting a spell seems kind of silly.
Yeah. Kind of going along those lines of like of what do you need for it to play? How hard would it be to take Savage Pathfinder and use Savage Pathfinder instead as the core rulebook instead of the core rules? Like, could you use class edges in Scarlands and it wouldn't be too much of a power difference?
I don't see why you wouldn't be able to. You may want to keep an eye toward because the Scarlands Player's Guide character creation requires you to take a culture package.
Right.
I've not looked too closely at the class edges.
Sure.
You may want to say, all right, if you take class edge, maybe you don't take a culture package. Like that might be a way to balance that out, maybe. But or maybe you just say let it rip. I mean, if there's one setting where you're okay to just let the chainsaw rip and let them have it, it's Scarlands. Let them have it because they might wind up fighting a Blood Reaper. So
yeah. Is that the one I did a video on?
Yeah, with the 4 blade.
Where it basically attack 8 times,
right,
in one turn. I'm like, dude, this thing's insane.
Yeah.
This will kill people. It was like the first monster I think you released, and I was like, okay, I want to do a video with this because this is like an insane monster.
They're
Finkel
deadly.
also asked a question, and is there an overarching meta plot from the original Scarred Lands to the Savage Worlds edition, or is it basically taking place in the same time period of the original and the new one?
So we've moved the calendar ahead to 151 AV. And what
A
that
whole 1 year.
means, yeah, a whole year. So what that means is to get super duper nerdy about it. The events of Dead Man's Rust probably just happened or are about to happen. If you're familiar with that campaign that happened in 5e. So the events of the Serpent M4 already happened. The Spear Ghost trilogy is actually a little bit like a year ago. The only real we have not settled the question of whether or not that which abides has been resurrected, which is basically the god of the Forsaken Elves was killed during the Divine War and was later subsequently resurrected at the very end of the 3.5 days. And in 5e, that was left as kind of an open question. We present it as an open question still. We do not present the world has changed because John Davios is back.
Sure.
We've provided stats for John Davios and some guidance as how the world might change, but we haven't done like the whole rundown of like, this is what's different now. We leave that up to the GM, at least for the time being.
Okay.
And then the Dragonlands are the biggest place where you're going to see a change because I worked with a cultural consultant on it. We just wanted to kind of bring a breath of fresh air into the Dragonlands, and I think give a fresh polish on it, and I think it worked very well. I'm really proud of it. I'm really happy with how it turned out. And that is the Cobalt Empress returning, having consumed the body of the Dragon Emperor, and she is now the rightful heir to the throne and has declared an end to the Great Retreat. So the dragons may slowly begin dipping their claws back into the world at large. I'm sure that won't end poorly for anyone.
Right. No, not at all. All right. All right. Well, we are going on an hour 15 minutes. What I will say to the chat is if you guys are at all interested in this, there is a link down below in the description below to check out this product over on DriveThruRPG. This is the link right now is just to the player's guide, which you can get in print or in PDF. But there is plenty of other material. There's a whole bunch of different creature profiles, or they get the creature collection, or map packs that you released recently. So a whole bunch of different stuff to check out down there if you want to get more into Scarred Lands. Definitely a really big setting to really digest and get into. Travis, is there anything that we did not talk about today that you want to make sure gets mentioned?
Just want to thank you very much for giving me the time.
Mm-hmm.
I am really proud of what we're doing. There's a lot more coming. I'm very excited. Can't wait to start talking about the Gluttonhold Gambit plot point campaign as we start pulling that together. And
I'm sure we'll have you on again and talk about that.
It's going to be gross and wonderful. I love it. But if I may, just to do a shout out for a colleague and friend of mine, the good folks over at Onyx Path Publishing are about to do a backer kit for the latest installment of the Earthbane Cycle series, their fantasy setting collection for the Storypath Ultra system, Jade Storm. It's a wuxia take on Storypath Ultra that starts crowdfunding, I think, on Thursday. I think if you look up Jade Storm backer kit, it should show up now. If the idea of fighting 100 people at once while you're mystically powered with jade that was stolen from demon gods that blew up fighting each other sounds cool to you, go back that over on backer kit.
All right.
Sounds cool to me. I think it's gonna be dope. So
sounds good. All right. Well, thank you so much, Travis. Thank you all in chat for hanging out and listening to more about Scarred Lands. Again, if you have any questions that did not get answered today, or if you're watching this in the VOD and you still have more questions afterwards, you can go ahead and check out the live stream over on Savage Universe on Monday, and you should be able to get all your questions answered there. So until next time, I hope you all stay savage. And any shout outs, Travis, at the end?
No, just thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Be good to yourselves and each other, and check out the Scarred Lands. Please be sure to rate and review it if you do too.
Yeah, check it out. Cheers, everybody.
See you.